Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast with your host, Charles Kiriakou. Today, I'm joined by Matt Carter, who is a senior design talent. Was it senior design talent manager at TDA? Right, it's an
Yes, yeah,
interesting job title,
bit,
but
bit of a yeah, senior consultant's fine,
senior
mate.
consultant. We'll go with that. It sounds fancy. I
Yeah,
like it. But Matt's been in the world of recruitment for several years and reached out to me. I mean, we're recording this now, 15th of November. He reached out to me a few weeks ago as he's a very keen proponent of personal development, professional development. And anyone that's listened to the show knows that that's one of my passions in life. So as soon as I saw that, I thought, yeah, let's jump on a call. We jumped on a call, got chatting away, and I thought, yeah, we have to get this episode underway. So obviously, for people that might not know you, Matt, give us a bit of an introduction to who you are, what you do, a little bit about your backstory.
yeah, sure. So I think everyone that knows me like kills me for saying this every time that I introduce myself to anyone, but I was once a professional footballer for a little while. So come from spent 13 years of my life at West Ham United and in their academy system until 18, and then was a professional for West Ham and Charlton for a little bit. But yeah, for whatever reason, like everyone says, injuries and stuff. I'm not going to claim it was necessarily, but didn't quite work out for me in football. But yeah, recruitment was what I landed in, like through no choice of my own. Really, it was just like the first thing that I think I literally put my CV on Read or something, like one of those websites, and yeah, my first company reached out to me there, and yeah, just went for the interview. I was like, apparently you can make loads of money in this job, so let's do it. But yeah, I started in 2018, I think, probably that 2017, 2018. I guess it was like I was thrown right in the deep end, like 360 recruitment immediately, like 2 week crash course from from the company that I was at, and yeah, go do it basically. The first 3 months, I was like, "What the hell am I doing here?" I've gone from training every day from a like football perspective to in an office sitting like doing something I have literally have no idea what is really. But yeah, like did my first deal in I think it was like in the third month of being there.
Oh wow.
And it was a pretty one of the biggest ones that someone had done at the company, which I was obviously happy with. Not that it really meant that much to me at that point. I was like, cool, like what is this? What does that mean? Like, but yeah, no, obviously, and then just kicked on from there. I think I billed about 100, over 100K in the first year, which is a personal achievement for sure. But yeah, just kicked on from there. I started doing um design recruitment, which is what I do now. I've been doing that for like 4 or 5 years maybe. But yeah, loved it ever since. Really, I started doing software engineering recruitment. I made some good money in that, but I just didn't really like connect with the space as much as I do with design, certain like for sure now. So yeah, I've been doing design ever since. Joined TDA where I am right now about a year. Well, pretty much just about a year ago. It's been here for a year. First time I've been doing the US market as well, which has been an interesting challenge for sure. So I did worked in Germany pretty much the entire other part of my career, but yeah, last year has been a US market, which has been a very interesting challenge and change of scenery for sure. So but yeah, it's a little bit about me anyway.
Nice, nice. So the topics we're going to discuss today, then, Matt and I, when we sat down, uh, we're both very, very passionate about the topic of mindset, personal development. We've both invested in ourselves, and before we clicked record, Matt was talking about how many different types of sales trainers, recruitment trainers, coaches, and just those types of people there are on LinkedIn and on Instagram and stuff like that. And I think I had a conversation with another coach today and another investor actually, and they were just saying that there are so many different types of people out there, and people that would like that person would probably hate me, and people that would like me would probably hate that person. But that's just the beauty of the market of the world. It's just great to have different types of people that you can learn from and that you feel like you can buy into. But the whole first topic we'll dive into will be around mindset, how we both invested in ourselves, personal development. And then we're going to talk about some actual sort of recruitment tools, techniques around questioning, listening, and how to really connect with people on a deeper level. Because I think, and I'm sure you all agree with me on this, Matt, that a lot of recruiters these days will just see the deal and just try and get a deal, but actually don't connect with a human being or do
Yeah,
anything leading up to the
yeah,
deal because they're just thinking about just getting money, right?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And don't get me wrong, I think I was 100% in that mindset earlier on in
Mm,
my career because that was just like how I was taught. It was like this is deal. This is like it's sales, right? It's a sales
mm,
job. But I think what I definitely realize now is that yeah, obviously it still is technically a sales role, but you're dealing with the most difficult commodity in the world, which is human beings, right?
Yeah.
And there is so much that this is why I think the recruitment is genuinely one of the hardest like sales roles to be in, because
Mm.
the product that is forever shifting and changing, and it's not only the product, it's the product's wife or husband or like
Yeah.
kids, it's
Yeah.
there's different things that come into play for sure. But yeah, I do. I think that recruitment is an incredibly tough space to work in for sure. And yeah, it's very tough to understand like everything that really goes into it. But yeah, I think like the topics that we'll cover off, especially like the emotional connection part. I think, as we said,
Mm.
like we're dealing with humans, right? And we if you just see them as a commodity that you're trading or selling effectively, yes, you might like it becomes very transactional at that point. But I think
Mhm.
the longer term, deeper relationships, both with candidate and clients, is built off of the emotional side for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the first topic we'll talk about is mindset, and you kind of opened up to me a little bit on our first call about your sort of mindset shift, and I've been really
Yeah.
vocal about when I started to get into personal development, and you can see
Mhm.
behind me I've got a ton of personal development books and
Yeah.
all up on that side as well. They're literally just all personal development books because I think it was
Yeah.
back in 2017 something just clicked and I was like I just got obsessed with it. Talk us through when
Yeah.
that sort of happened for you. When was the
Yeah.
pinnacle moment in your recruitment career there where you went, right, I need to really work on my mindset and just switch things around?
Yeah. In all honesty, mate, it wasn't too long ago. I think I've always been toying with the idea of like I need to do this, I need to do this, but it's always just
Mm,
like, oh, life gets in the way, like something blocks it or something changes your
mm,
mind or whatever. But I think it's come from, obviously, I think most recruiters would agree that this last like 18 months, 2 years for most has been an
hmm
incredibly tough time. I think it probably got to a point maybe like 6 to 9 months ago, I'd say, where I was like, this is incredibly tough. Like, is it? And I can't just keep doing the same things over and over again that perhaps used to work in a better market, for instance. But I think I learned a lot about myself in the period. Is like, don't get me wrong, like I did well in that like good period. I think a lot of people
hmm
did, but I think I probably thought I was better than I was
hmm
because during a tough period, it's like the stuff that used to work really well just wasn't working anymore. It's like, okay, well, do I just continue to beat this drum or do I do something about it? So yeah, I think it got to a point where I was like, I can't just keep doing it because it's not particularly working. And
hmm
it was a low period for sure, a tough period. But the other part was like, well, if I do something about it now, when the market does get better, it's only going to improve my
mm,
ability moving forwards when the market does pick up and shift. And I've seen a huge difference just in terms of like how how well I can control meetings and candidate calls and things just from the mindset shift of I'm not here to, especially on like the first calls you have with people, I'm not
mm,
here to make the deal or I'm not here to
yeah.
necessarily push them either way. It's just more about this person has agreed to speak to you. So do everything you can to understand why that is, like why they've agreed to it.
Mm,
And a lot of people don't really know initially. Like a lot of
yeah.
people will jump on the call and be like, you're just expecting you to sell them the dream and then be like, oh, okay, cool. Like, yeah, it sounds great. But the
Mm,
reality is like 99% of recruiters are going to say a similar thing in terms of what we do and how we do it. And there's obviously going to be different techniques and stuff, but
mm,
unless you fully try and solve that individual's person's issues, which is going to be different to other people's and probably different to the businesses as well at times.
mm,
Yeah, they're not really going to listen to you. But yeah, I think it was about 6 to 9 months ago. I just thought, yeah, like those two things. It was like, can't keep doing this, but if
mm,
I do something about it now and just upskill myself, more just from like a general sales perspective, not even really recruitment specific. It was more just like,
mm,
how do I become a better salesperson at this point to, yeah, be able to steer conversations in a better direction? Because the meetings were a struggle, but like when the meetings were picking up, it's like, okay, why am I not able to convert as many as I want to? And I think,
mm,
yeah, it was down to, yeah, just a little bit of just like, don't get me wrong, I was obviously trying to dig into the problems and stuff because I
mhm,
know that's, but I wanted to invest in myself in being able to get past that like real surface level problems. So,
mm,
everyone says, oh yeah, we'd like better quality CVs or whatever. Like we were like quicker
mm,
service, whatever it might be. But it's just trying to dig deeper into like what. Okay, so why is that important? What's not been happening so far? how is that impacting you daily, weekly, your targets,
Mm,
your your goals in your career, like how's it affecting you outside of work and things like that. So yeah, but yeah, that's probably when I noticed that something needed to happen, and I thought, you know, I followed a lot of people on Instagram at that point. I think Instagram was like my first
mhm,
point. It's like who's like, yeah, who can I seek out?
mm,
And yeah, I started following a couple people, and then I think to your point, obviously, just at the start, it's just who do I think whose methodologies do I connect with most?
mm,
There was specifically a guy called Jeremy Miner who I think he was like top 40 or 50 salespeople in the world at one point.
mm,
But his way, I believe, is very like just the furthest away from pushy as possible, like as pushing stuff on people. It's much more about skilled questioning to the point where you don't even really need to like. He doesn't really like. He says closing is not the word you should use in recruitment, really, because it's like you're dealing with people at the end of the day. So it's
mm,
more just like, you know, commitment is what I use, the word he
mm.
uses, as opposed to closing. It's getting them to the point of commitment as opposed to like, oh, I've closed this person. Because like he
Yeah.
said, he made a really relevant point. It's like if someone says to you, oh, I closed you, you're like, it's a bit offensive, right? Like, oh, yeah. It's almost like, yeah, it's almost like, oh, okay. Yeah, I connected with him because it was just, as I said, it's a lot less pushy, a lot less like you didn't really have to pitch, and I really liked that. It was just getting them to the point
Mm,
of emotionally getting them to connect with their problems so much that it was like completely illogical to not do something about it. And if you can learn that, and I'm still very much in the learning process of it, but
mm,
I can see the change of the calls and the deeper information already just from probably 6 months of training
mm.
courses and stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting you mentioned that because whenever I do like business development training or like one-to-one coaching with recruiters, and I firstly see how they would take, for example, either negotiation or taking on a job qualification. I get so surprised when I hear recruiters take a job qualification and we'll say it's a software engineer, and they're like, right, what are you looking for? Software engineer. Where do they need to be based? The UK, but it's fully remote. All right, what's the salary?
Yeah.
200K, 200K. Okay, cool. What's your culture like? We're a pretty dynamic culture. We're a startup. Cool. Dynamic
Yeah.
startup. Cool. When can you interview? Don't know. Just send me a CV and then we'll let you know. All
Yeah.
right, cool. I'll get some CVs. What I'll do is I'll go to my database. And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What the fuck? That's not
Yeah.
even surface layer. You haven't got
No. Yeah.
anything there. Absolutely
Yeah.
anything. And I always give like the war story when I first sold my first ever retainer. The customer was, and I believe, and I'm sure you all agree with me, I believe that sometimes in recruitment, you need a bit of luck on your side in terms of timing. Because if a
Oh,
customer
without a
comes to
doubt.
you
Yeah.
and you do like the best questioning and you do your quote pitch, but
Yeah.
they'd have no pain or whatever, then it's going to be
Yeah.
difficult. But the first time I
Yeah.
ever sold a retainer, the customer was referred by an ex-colleague because she'd done an interview day. And out of the 10 candidates, I think maybe five of them were like half relevant, three of them didn't turn up, and two of them, for a medical technology sales role, two of them were like pharmacists. They weren't even salespeople, right? And her
Yeah.
director had
Yeah.
flown from Italy all the way to the UK, and she's obviously
Oh
given her
wow.
a bollocking. So when she's
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
in, I've gone through the whole like kind of like spin selling and just like what's the
Yeah.
situation, what problems, what's the actual implication of that. So with your director flying all the way from Italy, what's the implication of that? Why is that such a problem? And just really asking why is that actually a problem?
Yeah.
And then qualifying not just the job and the team build, but what does the ideal recruitment partnership look like for you? Because I'm
Yeah.
not a
For sure.
transactional person. I
Yeah.
want to make sure that when we work together, I'm delivering you the best possible service. So once I just got her to open up, don't get me wrong, we worked in a WeWork back then, so we had free prosecco and beer. So she had a few proseccos in her, so she was like
Yeah. Yeah.
really letting
Always
loose, going,
helps. Yeah.
this recruiter was a bastard. But she
Yeah.
properly opened up, and then when I did my quote pitch, I wasn't
Yeah.
even selling because all I
Yeah.
all I needed to do was like, Matt, here's your problem here. Here's how I can
Yeah.
solve this. The implication of your problem is that this is how this solves this problem. What are your thoughts? She was in
Yeah.
a position to go, there's no way I'm not going to go forward with you.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree, mate. Yeah, I think BD has sort of, well, definitely fell into a trap of just like, oh, great, like this person wants to speak to me, so they must want to work with me. Like
Yeah.
it's a done deal. Like just get on, like as you said, like take the job order, basic information.
Mm,
Like we'll send you some CVs, but that's like yeah, don't get me wrong, like deals have been done like that. It's happened for
Mm,
sure, but it becomes so transactional. It's not in any sense of the word a partnership at that point. But to yeah, 100% like that. The retainer story, like if you're not trying to do that on every call, and sometimes like you have to depending on how much time you've got with the client, you have to split the calls up. Like I've learned that a
mm,
lot. Is that
yeah,
that first call you have with a client, like if you can do it right and you can properly like have that discovery phase
yeah.
chat, like that's probably like half hour, 45 minutes anyway. And you're not gonna be able to
Hmm.
sit there for like an hour and a half all the time to do that, then go into like the job order and take
Mm,
that. And but ultimately you want to get them, yeah, I think on that first call you want to get them to a point. And sometimes like even the pitch your side potentially is a separate call as well. Because you know, if
mm,
you're I'm a big believer that if you want to deliver something best, like it's good to take like a day out and like reassess like what
mm,
they've actually told you, digest it, and come up with, you know, if you need to come up with something creative, because it's difficult to do that on the spot. Like, and I
yeah.
think that if someone doesn't work with you just based off the fact that you've gone, look, I want to take a day just to digest everything you've told me today. Relay obviously the problems that they've
Mm,
gone and just say, look, I want to come up with the best solutions here, and you know, it might need some creativity and adjusting hit somewhat. So give me a day and I'll come back. We'll speak again in a day or something.
mm,
But yeah, if you've not uncovered the real issues, you're not selling anything at that point.
yeah.
You're literally just an order taker that then delivers some CVs, and you know you're not. I think your credibility is in
Yeah.
question at that point.
Yeah, I said to a bunch of recruiters recently that when you're going through that process, you don't want to leave anything up to chance. Like
No,
I used to come off of a job qualification with a client, and I knew like 100% or 99.9% what they would interview on paper and who would be successful at interview stage.
yeah,
And my old sales director, Liam, would always say, your client, if you've done the job the way that we've told you to do it, your client does not need to see CVs. Because the minute you send a CV to a client, they've got
yeah,
all the control. It's going to delay the process. They're going to see something on there, and then they might make their mind up about something. And then by the time you've spoken to them, that's festered and then grown into some toxic plant in their brain. And they go, "No, I'm not
yeah,
going to speak to Matt." So what I
yeah,
used to do is I would take the job brief with the client and say, right, so let me just reconfirm what I've taken on with you, Matt. If I get someone's CV in front of me and it has X, Y, and Z on there, right? Would you want to interview that profile if you saw that CV? Oh
yeah,
yeah, 100%. Okay. And if
yeah,
I speak to that candidate and I qualify that person and they come across like this, and they fit your culture because their personality is like this,
yeah,
would that be someone that you would be interested in moving through the process quite quickly? Oh yeah, 100%. Okay, cool.
yeah,
I'm looking at my calendar right now. You tell me what dates that we can block out for three, four interviews. And
yeah,
what I'll do is once I've qualified these candidates, I'll put them in your diary for you. And so many
yeah,
recruiters I speak to these days, Matt, are like, wait, so you wouldn't send a CV? Like, what? You don't fucking
yeah,
need to if you do your job that
yeah,
well. You just
yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree for sure. I think it's an interesting one because in my space, like product designers that we work with, it's a real tough one from that perspective. Like I think
Mm,
yeah, generally yes, like 100% you try and get into slots without sending things, but product designers have portfolios that they
mm.
usually show,
That's fair.
and usually that's a very important like used to like before now like back in the day it used like a
Yeah.
couple of years ago when I first started it was just like companies wouldn't like and to be fair even still now like the CV for a designer is pretty irrelevant like yes
Mm.
they'll take a
It's
quick
all
look
about
at
the
it but
portfolio.
ultimately yeah they just want to see their work and they probably give like 30 seconds to a minute of just scanning through this portfolio so more often than not it's important that like I've invested a lot of time and effort into like just sitting with designers and being like and design leaders for a lot of the time to be like also portfolio wise like what do you like what's important on there to gain a really good understanding of like generally what
Mm.
needs to be on there. Now it does change like from person to person. Obviously, also design it like especially visual design, like
Mm.
how an app or interface looks is obviously quite down to individual
Mm.
perception sometimes as well. So
Yeah.
that bit becomes really difficult. So I totally get it. Like 100%, I would be pushing for dedicated interview slots with a client. It's also like a test of their commitment at that point as well. It's like
Hmm.
what if they don't want to do that? Why is that? Like I would ask them. So it's like,
Mm.
well, look, I think the best way to do this is look, I know you're a busy person. let's get some interview slots now, in the diary. And yeah, like based on what you've told me, like obviously from a design perspective, I say, look, I'll definitely run the portfolios past you first. You can give me the green light, but based on what you told me, X, Y, and Z, like, are you happy for them to put in? And if they're like, I
Mm,
don't want to do it that way, it's like, okay, well, yeah, what do you think you're going to lose by doing it this way, or like,
mm,
how do you think is better to do it than this way? And it's you can judge them as how good they're going to be as a client at that point for sure. Because if
mm,
they're like, no, like we want to do it this way, it's not our process, and
mm,
we'll give you feedback in 3 to 5 days and stuff. It's like, don't be scared to walk away at that point. Like you're there to. I think a big thing, like the guy I've been doing the training with, is like, I think a lot of recruiters and just salespeople in general act as if they're the person you're speaking to is up here and you're here, like in terms of status, whereas like
mm,
they're the ones with the issues and the problems, not you. Like you're here to solve their problems and issues, so you should, if anything, you're higher status in that particular scenario
mhm.
and conversation. So if they're not playing ball, and they're not going to be the client that you want them to be, obviously you can try and educate them and push back on that, but you can always just say no.
Yeah.
If it's not going to be the way you want to work, and you feel like, you know it's always about assessing. Like, it's obviously there's so many components that go into it, but that's
Mm,
one particular part. It's like, do they want to work? Are they at least open to listening and working with you on the process that has worked like
mm,
optimally for other clients? And if you can give examples of how it's worked, and what it's done for the client, how much time it saved them, or if they were really struggling with a position for like 3 6 months and you were able to fit it
mm.
by following this process, if they still say no to that, it's like, well, are they going to be the actual client that you want them to be, right?
That's it. That's exactly it, mate. And I think a lot of recruiters, and I'm sure you must have been there at some point, because I certainly was, where your
Oh yeah,
boss will
for
come
sure.
to your desk and say, what's your pipeline? You go, I've got like 10 live jobs on my desk. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then like you actually
Yeah.
inspect the jobs, and
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
like
a
they're
lot
not
of them are
even
shy.
B jobs. They're just a load of shite. And then you have to go through like these portals. You're not allowed to speak to.
Yeah,
And look, like, I appreciate people listening to this, like will be working in different sectors and go, you guys are talking shit in our sector, you have to do this,
yeah,
whatever.
of
But
course, yeah,
largely like in like I did sales recruitment, I've done L&D and tech, you've done tech and design and stuff, like
yeah,
especially in perm recruitment, like you have to test that commitment from the client. You have to make sure
yeah,
that they're definitely committed to working with you, because I would rather have 2 jobs on my desk with decent fees, great commitment that I know I'm going to fill, than 10
yeah,
jobs that it's like I hope I fill them. Do you know what
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean? Like it's just
yeah,
like, what we
yeah,
doing?
yeah. The thing is, like, especially with contingent stuff as well. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, a lot of recruitment, and especially in tech, and it's hard. Like, it's tough to sell retain. It's tough to get
Mm,
exclusivity. Um, I think you have to do a really good job on clients, like that example you
yeah.
gave. And I've recently signed a client exclusively, which is great. Like, it's possible, but it is tough. But
Mm,
like, as you said, I'd rather have like 2 exclusive roles that I know I can fill over
mhm,
10 contingent roles that not only you're competing with their internal team, but you're competing with like how X amount of agencies, like the actual percentage of you, like the odds against you in that scenario are
mm,
massive. And it's like, yeah, cool, you've got 10 jobs, but like the percent, like
yeah.
what is the actual percentage chance of you filling those jobs is probably pretty low. So yeah, I'm always a big believer of just trying to win the right business, and don't be scared to say no to people that are
Mm,
just not gonna play ball with you, because you're just gonna it's a massive, a lot of our work we do is for free, especially in contingent, right? Everything we do is for free.
mm,
It's probably one of the only industries where we do all this work up
mental.
front for nothing. Which is mental, it's madness. But you've got to value your own time as much as my wife actually made a really good point to me the other day. She was like, Matt, why do you do so much for people when people don't do it back to you? And I was like, yeah, that really like hit me. I was like, you're so right. It's like, why invest so much time and effort into people that aren't giving it back to you? And if you've got clients that are doing that for you, and want to work with you, and want to work with you to a process that fits you and them, of course, look, our ideal process might not be perfect for them. There might be some
Mm,
negotiations here and there that don't fit into it. It's hard to like fully implement everything you want to do into someone else's process, but they're playing ball with a lot and they want to work with you, and they're at least open to feedback, and it's a constructive environment that you can build with them.
mm,
That's the optimal client that you want to work with. But there's plenty out there,
mm.
just like as you said, yeah, just send us CVs. Like,
Yeah.
here's the job description, send us CV. It's like, I don't I always go back to those people. It's like, what do you expect to achieve from this? Like, I know, I was like, great, like the job description tells me a little bit, right? But I've actually sent like two or three job descriptions from companies that hire from the same role. Like, you tell me what the difference is between these companies' job descriptions and your companies. They're like, oh yeah, fair enough. Like they look very much identical. It's like I can't. And how do you expect me to sell this opportunity to candidates? Like if I speak to a candidate about your role, I know literally nothing about your team, culture, projects that you're working on,
And
like
a website
everything.
can only tell you so much, right?
Yeah,
Like
everything a
what we're
candidate
getting.
actually wants to know, like is not on the job description. So how do you expect me to sell this? So yeah, I think it's just about
Mm,
massively valuing your own time and
mm.
holding yourself to a higher status at a lot of times
Yeah.
as well.
It comes with time though, doesn't it? Because, you think back when we first started our careers in recruitment, you wouldn't have necessarily seen a vice president of a company as equal to you when you're a trainee
No,
consultant, right?
yeah,
And I always think back to during COVID, I did medical technology recruitment. So I recruited salespeople, field service engineers, marketing people, clinical services people, all customer facing. So a job
yeah,
description didn't mean a lot because they might not vibe with the team and obviously with that particular customer unit, whatever. Anyway, during COVID, the theatre departments and operating rooms were all shut down, as you can imagine. So my whole
yeah, of course,
market
yeah,
was just completely like frozen. I had like 19
yeah,
jobs. Probably
yeah,
17 or 18 of them were retained jobs, and only one of them stuck for the next 12 months. So I lost like
yeah,
18 retained roles, and I was like, what the hell
yeah,
am I going to do? So I transitioned into critical care, which, as you can imagine, in COVID, probably a good shout.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
did quite well, but I look back and I think to myself, I reflect a lot and I go, what would I have done differently during that period? And I think when I give the analogy like you're starving, right? So as a recruiter, you're like hunter gatherer. You
yeah,
have to go out there and hunt for your animal. You have to stalk the deer for ages, and then eventually you're going to strike, right?
yeah,
So I pulled a couple of jobs with some of the biggest international critical care businesses in the world. But clearly, as you can imagine, with those types of businesses, it goes through the
yeah,
talent acquisition partner. They have a
yeah,
portal and they've got a
yeah,
15-stage interview process and all the rest of it.
yeah,
And I remember at like the end of the month, we had like our end of month wrap, and then my director was just like, "Oh, Charles has pulled these jobs with these companies," and everyone's like, "Oh, we've been trying so long to get in with these businesses."
yeah,
But realistically, I wasted my time. I only made one placement out of the four,
yeah,
and I had so many jobs on my desk, and I was like resourcing, and then you get
yeah,
a candidate that's unbelievable, and then they go, "The hiring manager has said no. Why?" He's just said
yeah,
no. You're like, what am I
yeah,
doing? And then my boss just came back
yeah,
to me and was just like,
yeah,
you're wasting time on these roles. There is
yeah,
so much more business out there. But I was in
yeah,
my mind, I'm like, well, I've got food on the table, but I didn't realize the food on the table has gone stale. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
yeah,
So I think
yeah,
sometimes with these recruiters, like you you think you've got things on your desk, but there is so much out there. There is.
oh
You
yeah,
just have to
yeah,
sometimes just put that in the bin and just go back out
yeah.
and just go and hunt for fresh food.
Yeah, for sure. I think something I definitely learned about myself is that I mean I worked in Berlin for a long time and
Mm,
it was like startup city basically. And
mm,
I love working with startups. And then when I came into the US market, obviously there's a lot of much bigger companies in the US. And I was like firstly trying to go after them, because they're like
mm,
big brands. And I'm like, I don't know why I even did it. Because I think it was just like the brand names. I was like, oh, it'd be so good to work with them. But then you look back at it and you think, but there's going to be so much process involved. There's going to be like so many potential recruiters working with them. Like it's going to
mm,
be. So I changed my whole like approach pretty quickly and was like, right, I'm
mm.
going to go back to basics, back to what I know, and just like, start targeting startups. And like all the placements I've pretty much done since I've been here have
Mm,
been in startups.
nice.
And I think for any recruiter who wants to build the best relationships, like I genuinely think that startups are the way forward.
Yeah.
Because usually they don't have a big internal team. They might have a couple, but even them, like they feel the pain because
Mm,
I think in any normal market where companies are trying to attract talent themselves, of course, like a lot of people just rely on people coming to them through job descriptions or
mm,
LinkedIn or whatever. If the internal team aren't specialized in particular areas, if they're just generic ones as well, like it's very difficult to find really good people. And I think just
mm,
brand is a huge issue for a lot of startups because no one in particular has really heard of them until they get like big or they announce big rounds of funding or whatever. Even then, like they're not like a globally recognized place
mm,
or even like regionally or country recognized brand. And they might be the best place to work in the world, but if no one knows you are, like that's tough. So like for me, I've always always built the best relationships with startups because I think they're just so much more open to listening to you as a
Mm,
professional. Obviously, you have to build credibility with your
mm.
understanding of the market and stuff, but they generally are quite much more open to listening to you as a consultant rather than just you being that person that's sort of adding to the
Yeah,
CV pile that they've got limitless amounts of right now.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, I'm the exact same. And even now with my business, I predominantly work with startups. I've always worked at startups or, SMEs, and it's just a quicker, easier process. To be honest with you, it's very rare that I've worked
yeah,
with multinational businesses. The only time I ever would is if the hiring manager had the authority to sign off at an agency, had the
yeah,
the, the budget, and basically everything gets signed off by the hiring manager. I had one
yeah,
business that was like a $2 billion turnover. They had like 10,000 employees, but
yeah,
the hiring manager in the UK for that particular business unit had full control and autonomy, and he did a one
yeah,
stage interview process on Zoom,
yeah,
which was
yeah.
just unbelievable. It was
That's
just
golden,
amazing.
that yeah, yeah,
It's so good. But again, that goes down to the fact that I'd worked with that guy for many, many, many years. He knew that I was very, very specialist, and that he trusted that if I put someone forward to him, that that's a candidate I think would be able to do the job
yeah,
quite
yeah,
well. But I just want to go back a second because we spoke a little bit about kind of you investing in yourself, and you've been working with this guy, and you talked
yeah,
a lot
sure.
about going on Instagram and stuff. What
Mm.
other things? Because the reason why I want to ask you this is I always
Yeah,
say this to recruiters that anything you do outside of work, positive or negative, will always trickle down. If you're going
yeah,
out on the
sure.
sesh 3 times a week, it's going to trickle down into your work. If you're going to the gym 3 times a
Yeah,
week,
yeah,
it will trickle down. If you're meditating, if you're doing,
yeah,
there's so many things for your personal development. But and for me, I'm a big proponent of sharing solutions that have worked for you. They might not work for
yeah,
listeners listening, but they
yeah, yeah.
might pick one thing out that you've done and go,
Mm.
I've not tried that. So what other things have you done
Yeah,
to, when
yeah,
you say you've invested in yourself for your personal development?
yeah. I think it's just like I think for me, I've never been a big fan of like cold calling and stuff.
Mm,
Because I think there's obviously massive mixed opinions on it. But especially like again, like during this down period, I was like, can I just rely on like my digital track record that I've like been
mm.
successful in doing a lot before? The answer was no, effectively. So I had to do something. Like I couldn't just sit there and
Yeah.
do nothing. So like I think it's just about I think personal awareness is such a big thing.
Mm,
Because as I said, like I think during that good period, a lot of people did well. But
mhm,
like I had a bit of a reality check. I was like, maybe I'm like, it was sometimes a hard pill to swallow. Be like, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was.
mm,
And don't get me wrong, like I think market conditions had something to do with it, obviously with the downs, because I think a lot of people struggled, but there were still people doing well. And I was like, fuck, like how are these people still doing well? What are they doing differently? So I was like actively
mm,
reaching out to some of these people, like, would you be open like just to mentor me or like jump on a call just
mm,
so I can like pick your brain a little bit? I spoke to like several people of just like who seemed to be doing well still, just about like what was working for them, what they were doing
mhm.
differently. So it's just like picking up different things from what they're doing. But like the cold calling thing, like I found this guy on LinkedIn. I don't know if you follow him. This guy called like Giulio Centani or something like it's an Italian cold calling
Oh yeah,
trainer.
yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've
Yeah.
seen him. Yeah, yeah.
So,
He's
but he
wicked.
does like the cold calling comedy show on Fridays
Yeah,
every week.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, like cold calling is such a like daunting task to a lot of people. Don't get me wrong, like
Mm,
it's definitely been a daunting thing for me because I'm like, fucking, it's like it's repetitive. It's high, like it is highly unsuccessful. But he like just listening to him was like so refreshing. It's like he just makes fun out of it. Like can make it a fun time, and like if you get other people doing it together, it's it's not a bad
mm,
thing. And like there's different ways you can open the calls and try different things. So like yeah, just I think personal awareness, like understanding what you're good at. But if it's not working, like what areas could you improve on? What could you try differently? Like things outside your comfort zone as well. Because like
mm,
there's no this is the right way to do recruitment. This is the right way to do sales. Like if you, as you
mm,
said, there's so many different sales trainers out there, different techniques and backgrounds, and whatever. People have made millions and millions of pounds, dollars, whatever it is, off of doing it differently. So there's no
mm,
like silver bullet. This is how you do it. But I think it's about understanding what resonates with you most in your style, but don't be scared to still try the other things that you might not
mm.
be fully comfortable doing. So like I've been doing way more cold calling recently. And yeah, like sometimes it goes well, sometimes it's like
Sometimes it
large
may be
majority of
good, sometimes it may be
yeah,
shit.
exactly. Majority of the time it's like fucking awful. Especially like US like pickup rate is terrible. Like
Mm,
a lot of them just have auto, like as soon as unrecognized number comes through, it just goes straight to voicemail anyway. So it's tough,
mm,
like definitely tough to connect to people. But when you do, like I think it's just about making the conversation human as much as you possibly
yeah.
can. Like I think how many people get called in like, "Hi, it's Matt Carter from TDA. I'm calling because like something incredibly scripted and very like it's
Mm,
just so easy to pick up on. And I think a big thing like the guy I've been focusing on is just how do we decrease sales resistance in everything you do, so not
mm,
to sound like everyone else and not to get people's guards up immediately. So instead
mhm,
of the typical hi, it's Matt Carr from TD, I'm calling like because I've got a designer speech about whatever it would be.
mhm,
It's more just like calling them and ask them like for their help. Could you? I just wonder if you could help me out a moment.
mhm,
It just piques their curiosity, piques their, and most
mm,
people like are quite happy to at least listen to see if
mhm.
they could help,
Yeah.
even if it's like a random person. But if it's a nice interest, like hi, it's Matt with TDA. No, I was just giving me a call to see if you could help me out a moment. And it usually just like, yeah, sure, what it's about, or like, yeah, okay, who's this? What it's about. But at least it gives you the
Mm,
opportunity to then go into the
mm,
conversation and just you might know that they're the right person to speak to, but more than often I
yeah.
was just like, look, I was just looking for the right person to speak to about possible gaps in the recruitment process for design talent right now. Other companies I've been working with have been really struggling to find top talent. Passive design talent's become much
Mhm,
harder to get. Like, are you the right person to speak to about this? And if so, like, how does this resonate with you? Like something like that.
mhm.
And that's like
Yeah,
worth
nice.
10 times better than just,
Mm,
hi, it's Matt Carr from TDA. Like, I've got the best designer on the market. Here's why X, Y, and
yeah,
Z.
yeah.
Like, here's all their here's all the percentages that probably don't mean that much to you. Like
Mm,
it's just trying to like, as I said, just make it a bit more human. And but like as I said,
yeah.
like at Julio, he just makes like loads of fun out of it. And like there's so many different ways of opening cold calls and stuff. But yeah, like as I said, don't be scared to venture in and try things that you're not been particularly comfortable with or a bit maybe scared to do
Mm.
in the past.
Yeah, I like those types of cold call openers, and I've worked with a lot of recruiters on their cold calling, and I think like a natural opener for recruiters is that, hey, it's Charles here from TDA. I've got some really good candidates, and I saw online that you're hiring.
Yeah,
Just wondering if you're open to seeing some profiles. And it's just like, how many calls has that person got with the exact same thing?
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, obviously it's been a little while since I've actually done recruitment, but I've been doing
yeah,
cold calling and predominantly warm calling nowadays because
yeah,
of the personal branding and stuff. But
yeah,
when I was in recruitment, I had two types of openers, and to be honest, like I'm talking back in like 2021 was like the last time I was in recruitment.
yeah,
I didn't really know anything about permission-based openers. I didn't really see
yeah,
much about that at that point. So my
yeah,
opener would be one of two things. Because I was so highly niche in what I'd done, I knew every
yeah,
single business that sold those types of products. So if
yeah,
you sold 4K rigid endoscopes into theatres in the
yeah,
UK, I would call you up and say, "Hey Matt, it's Charles here from TDA. I'm currently working with a guy who works for your main competitor, works for this company, who's got 10 years experience selling 4K rigid endoscopes. Finished his non-compete, he's fully available. Giving you a quick call because I just thought you'd want to
yeah,
see that type of person." And then I just go
yeah,
silent, and then 9 times out of 10 they would go, "Wow, that sounds like an impact," because it's product at the
yeah,
end of the day.
yeah,
But
100%.
sometimes that wouldn't necessarily work, so you had to kind of switch it
Yeah,
up. If I did have an actual live candidate, normally it
yeah,
would work. The other type of opener I would go to would be I would do a lot of fact finding before, not through like
yeah,
research looking online, but through speaking to
yeah,
people, which I think a lot of people
yeah,
misconstrue this. They spend so long doing research. My
yeah,
research was calling a candidate and going,
yeah,
"Matt, what's going on in the business right now? Blah blah
yeah,
blah. I know you're not open to opportunities, but tell me about your business. I saw that
yeah,
this person left. What's the consequence of that person leaving? Blah, 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 blah. If they were to hire, what types of profiles would they like to see?"
yeah,
And then just call the person up and then just say, "Look, I've just spoken to somebody within the industry. They've recommended that I get in touch with you. I hear that you're going through these problems. And I
yeah,
help type with these types of similar to your one. I
yeah,
help these types of
yeah,
businesses with these with solutions that can help with these types of
yeah,
problems. What are your thoughts on that?" And then they go nine
yeah,
times out of ten, they're like, "Who was it that you've spoken to?"
yeah,
Or actually, do you know what? Yes, that really does resonate.
yeah,
Tell me a little bit more. And it's like
yeah,
you said, it's more human. And the big thing, Matt, is it's consultative. People forget you're a recruitment consultant. You're not just a
yeah,
recruiter. You have to
yeah,
be consultative.
Yeah, I think like recruiter just means CV sender, in all honesty. Like
Job order
without the
taker,
consultant
yeah.
part, it's like job order taker, CV sender. But yeah, and I think like the permission based openings again is something that I've learned about recently, to be honest. And it's,
Mm,
as I said, it's not no silver bullet. It's like you have to try different things that are going to work with different people. But yeah, I think unless you have like, I think especially in today's market, like especially in my market right now, unless you have literally the unicorn that they have been
yeah.
seeking for years and years, like calling them up and saying, I've got this candidate, they're just going to be like, look, I've had X calls already, or I
Mm,
get messages on LinkedIn all the time, like we don't work with agencies, blah blah blah. Like you're trying to just steer them away from, I'm a recruiter trying to sell you this person,
hmm.
more as like, here's what I've been seeing in the market, or like here's some problems that have solved for other clients or similar people
Yeah.
to yourself. Like, and you're just asking them if it resonates with them, if they've seen something similar. And that's when you try and start like qualifying the problems at that point. Like you want to
Yeah.
try and get to those problem discussions as quickly as you
Mm,
can. So leading with like a potential problem. I think it's difficult. So I always like don't ever assume anything in
hmm.
recruitment. But I think like with though, if you list off maybe one or two that potentially like a lot of hiring managers are, and again, it comes from speaking to people, right? You don't learn what
Mm,
the problems are unless you speak to people. But you list maybe one or two, three at max, I'd say. But if you list one or two, hopefully one's going to hit, or and then they'll be like, yeah, to be fair, like we have been struggling a little bit. Usually they'll come back with an objection at that point as well. So it's about like how
yeah.
you handle that and how you get around it. But yeah, I think as I said, like at the start, just don't be scared to try different things that you're
Yeah.
maybe a bit outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. And on the comfort zone thing as well, I had a coaching session this week with a recruiter who has got quite bad anxiety, and I'll do a whole sprint and no one will pick up the phone, and I get really frustrated, or someone picks
Yeah,
up the phone and says we don't want to work recruiters, and I just get a freeze, and I asked her, like, what do you do for your anxiety? And her answer was, I don't. The problem with my anxiety is it's so bad that I get anxious about doing stuff to help my anxiety. I'm like, right, okay, cool.
yeah, yeah,
And I was like, so what types of things do you do for your mental health, and what types of things would
yeah,
you say you do to get out of your comfort zone on a regular basis? And she couldn't name a single thing. And I just
yeah,
basically said to her, like, look, the way I kind of operate, I don't tell you what to do. I don't tell you what you should do. I don't think a coach should ever say you should do
yeah,
that, right?
yeah,
I'm gonna kind of you're now aware of the problem. Here are a couple of things that have helped me. I need you to now go out and find something that is relatively out of your comfort zone. I'm not telling you to, go crazy and sign up for a marathon, right? But just do something that's
yeah,
relatively out of your comfort zone and build that habit and do it daily. And I always say to people, for me, like, yeah, I've got a cold plunge in my garden, right? I like it, but I've been doing it for 2 years. Do you think I enjoy going out at 7 a.m. when it's 5 degrees Celsius
yeah,
and stripping down naked outside and then putting my fucking
yeah,
swimming trunks on?
yeah,
Absolutely not. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
I question my sanity every fucking morning. But
yeah,
because after that 3 minutes of being out of my comfort zone, I'm just like, right, okay. I'm
yeah,
calcifying my brain. I'm getting more resilient, and I just
yeah,
try and do. I mean, even this podcast, like I enjoy this, but
yeah,
sometimes speaking to new people that like you and I
yeah,
have only spoken once, right? But I've spoken
yeah,
to
cool,
like NEDs, investors, and stuff, and I'm
yeah,
I'm having these fucking conversations, and I'm like, this guy's scaled a business to like 100 mil, and I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, all right, the
yeah,
imposter syndrome is quite
yeah,
rife right now. But yeah, man, like you
yeah,
definitely you're 100% right. You definitely need to be like consistently getting out of your comfort zone, especially if
yeah,
you're doing cold calling, because it is an
yeah.
uncomfortable experience being brutally rejected time after
Yeah,
time, isn't it?
yeah. I think my best advice to everyone, something I've taught myself, and probably like you resonate with as well, is just completely detach yourself from thinking that this call is going to lead to anything. Like
Yeah.
if you just detach yourself and think like, I just want to have a conversation. Like if your target is to target yourself on conversations versus booking meetings. Like obviously
Mm,
meetings are great. Like you want to book meetings. It's the whole point of doing it, right? But if you get that person to speak for like 20 or 30 seconds or like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, like you're getting someone, you're practicing the
mm,
ability to keep someone engaged on the phone, asking the right questions to get around it. But yeah, I think we spoke off when we spoke off camera as well. It's like detach yourself from the deals as well. Like if you've got a client that is buying and you've got candidates in the interview process, like don't be counting your commission already. Like
yep.
'Cause I definitely used to do that at the start.
Same.
And I think everyone does, but
Yeah.
there's so many things that can go wrong. But I worked in Germany as well, where like there was 3 month notice periods. Sometimes there was 3 months to the end of the quarter notice periods. Sometimes there was 6 month notice periods. Like
Yeah.
sometimes
I've
your
been there.
your sales cycle could be like a whole year of one person like landing a job
Mm,
and starting that job. And of course, you've still got like rebate periods in there as well potentially. So there's so many things that can happen and go wrong. So yeah, just detach yourself from the sale, like the meeting. Just control what you can
mm,
control, build yourself up in terms of like your
mm,
ability to handle those conversations and steer the conversation in the right direction.
mm,
And controlling conversations is key. Like I think I think everyone says it these days, but I'm a massive believer of if you're speaking 20% of this conversation, you're probably doing the right things.
mm,
Because the more you're not talking, the more you can listen and understand and dig deeper into these people's problems for sure.
mm. No, I couldn't agree with you more. A bit of advice that you probably agree with, and something my old director told me was basically exactly what you just said there around detach yourself from the outcome, the deal,
Yeah,
the client meeting, and just said when you get on a client call, if they answer the call and they give you more than 5 seconds, they're not saying, "Oh, I've got to go in a meeting."
yeah,
Aim for one piece of information. So
yeah,
what I go through with people is a very, very simple thing: team company recruitment. And always do recruitment last because that's
yeah,
what most recruitment consultants do,
yeah,
right? Team questions, simple, like again, all open-ended questions, but this will be into the conversation, but finding
yeah,
out how many people they have in their team, how many people they want to have in their team in the future, the
yeah,
company, are they going through investment, what's the culture like, etc. If the client says, Charles, I'm really sorry, but I've got to go in about a minute and a half. I've got a meeting. I'm literally just waiting for the person to unlock the door. And you go, all right, but it's only 30 seconds. We'll have a quick chat. And then you can just identify a couple of those key bits of information. And then I
yeah,
try and book something later down the line. In your mind, if you can reframe that to a success, you won't be put off going in to do cold
yeah,
calling again. But
yeah,
if you get off that call, and I saw this once with a recruiter when I was the L&D manager, they got off a call and they generated like 7 or 8 different bits of info. But they got
yeah,
off the call and said, I didn't get a meeting. And I was like, why? And it's like the client was like super strapped for time, couldn't do that. And I was like,
yeah,
right, okay. But he said that he's usually working from home on a Friday and he's free, so you can call him then. And you've also found out that this person's leaving in their team. You also found out
yeah,
what tech they use. You also found out what his pain point was, all in the space of
yeah,
a few minutes. Yeah, but I didn't get the meeting booked, and he's not accepting CVs. That's a fucking success, mate. That is an
yeah,
absolute success. Because otherwise,
yeah,
that person, if he didn't see that success, wouldn't have bothered continuing with that sprint for BD.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I think like the KPI topic's a different topic for sure, but yeah, I think it's
Mm,
just if you can hold yourself accountable to things that are genuinely controllable, and I think it's market condition dependent as well. Like,
mm,
there's no way like companies' KPIs right now should be the same as what they were back in
yeah.
the real big period, like CV sends, interviews. Like, I get it, but it should be much more about the quality
Yeah.
of those things, like quality
100%.
of conversations, information, referrals, leads, like whatever, that type of thing should be what you measure yourself against. And it's become a lot more focused around the smaller wins, as you said. Like it's having a conversation, like what did you get from that conversation? And like that guy you mentioned, like all that information, if the guy didn't want to accept CVs or he didn't book the meeting, he can lead with that like in his follow-up email or message and say, look, um even like the subject line to regain his attention and be like, you told me this on the phone, or like whatever. um it shows his credibility that he's listened, he's understood.
Mm,
If that person doesn't work with him, at least he's got that market intel, that information, and he could try a different approach, different person. Like there's plenty of different people in companies that could be responsible for or
mm,
influence decision making for sure.
mm. I met Nitin, who's the podcast host of Rec Talk, and he said something when I met him at the expo, that you could be the sweetest peach on the tree, but that client might not love peaches, and that's absolutely fine. Go and
Yeah,
find someone that does like peaches, and I think that's
yeah,
just such an amazing analogy.
yeah, totally agree.
One of the things we were going to speak about was
Yeah,
how to connect deeper with people in the role of recruitment. So
yeah,
some people will say that people have a natural I say natural
Yeah,
ability to get deeper with people, or they're quicker to build rapport with people. They're a little bit more
yeah,
I don't know. There's just various different factors, but
yeah,
let's just say that the people listening right now are naturally good or they're not naturally
yeah,
good. What advice would you give people for getting a deeper connection with people, candidates, clients, etc., in the role of recruitment?
yeah, yeah, sure. I think a big thing for me is that I think there's a big misconception of like people always buy from people they like. I think it's part of it for sure.
Mm,
I think that's yeah, if someone hates you, they're probably not going to buy from you, right? But I
yeah.
do think that you have to be prepared to ask the perhaps more difficult questions. And more often than not, it's just a lot of like whys and why is that
Mm,
important to you? Like why has this happened? Why have you not like effectively like why have you not done anything about this up
mm,
until now? And sometimes they're going to be a bit like taken back by the question, but you're not asking in like an invasive way. It's more for you to just be like so you can dig to the deeper cause or the root problem
mm.
of that problem or like if you're talking to candidates, right? Motivations, like how many surface level answers do you get to that? It's like, okay, like when you're speaking to a candidate, so like I want to dig deep into
Mm,
why potentially you're not quite happy in your current role.
mhm.
And a lot of them will be like I'm not actively looking for a new position, but if they're on the phone to you, like technically that means they are kind of actively
Yeah.
looking, right? Because they're
Mm,
they're entertaining a conversation about another role. So some of them will be like, look, I'm really happy, and it's like, okay, that's great. Sounds like it's going really well there. If there was like just one thing that you could change about your current position, or what would that look like? What would that be? Because
mm.
at least at that point, they're probably going to tell you at least one thing. Then you can start digging deep into that. So they go, oh, yeah, well, I don't know, like we used to work from home 3 days a week, and now it's only two. And it's like,
Mm,
okay, so why is that a problem for you? Why is that
mm,
something that's become an issue, or how has that impacted your thoughts around the position, the company? And usually they're going to answer that in a more deeper way. A lot of recruiters just move on from that, right? It's like, oh yeah,
mhm.
yeah, wanted to work from home. Okay, cool. Oh yeah, so what's your salary expectations?
Yeah.
um, it's and it does become like the conversations with candidates and clients, like you should block out. I try and block out big amounts of time if I can. Like I want to try and book
Mm,
hours with everyone if I can, because I think it takes that amount of time to really have a proper conversation. If they're not down for an hour, that's fine. Like you just obviously try and get the best information out as
mm,
possible. But you just want to continuously like don't be. I think why is the biggest question that you want to ask more and more is when someone
mm.
tells you something, like even if it's quite obvious what they mean, like don't ever assume that's what they mean. Just keep asking, like going deeper. It's like yeah, like if someone says to you, for instance, oh, yeah, let's say, like losing work from home again, for example,
Yeah.
is why is that so important to you? Well, yeah, it's just like obviously taking, but like takes longer to get in the office. It's more expensive. Okay,
Mm,
again, like why is that important to you though? So, and
mm,
don't be scared to keep digging deeper into that, because then you might find out that oh, like actually it's it's costing me X amount more, which is like now I can't take my kid to what X class, or it's like financially
mm.
putting me under a bit more pressure. And then that's when they start really emotionally connecting with the problems that they're having, and that
Yeah.
makes it so much easier for you to then like if you've got an opportunity that does offer a more remote work, and then you go right, okay,
Hmm.
cool. Trigger for them is this remote working piece, so I'm going to go in hard and sell on this remote working piece.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with passive candidates, like obviously from the candidate side,
Mm.
they're not always going to give you like two or three reasons why they're looking to leave. So if
Because
you
there might
get
not be.
one, yeah, exactly. If you get one like tangible thing you can dig deeper into, I'm going to
Mm.
base a lot of my pitch. Like I'm just going to give them more information, but my hard hitting part about why this role could be good for them.
Mm.
Obviously, you've got to listen to all the good things about their role. But the thing that's going to differentiate your position to theirs is that working from home piece. So if they work from remote, it's okay. But they offer fully remote working. You can travel into the office if you want to, so you've got that both sides of that. If this opportunity could offer you everything that's good about your role right now plus the remote working piece, how would that make you feel? I think feel is a much better word
Mm.
to use than just like how does that sound.
Yeah.
Because if you go into feel again, it's more like that emotional
Hmm.
connection, connecting it to the emotions, how they're actually feeling about it, and be like, oh yeah, like that would feel really good. And then it'd be like, oh, okay, so like again, like how would it make you feel to have that time back so you can spend that time with your kids or do whatever you've told
Yeah.
me that you wanted to do. It's just like, again, that emotional connection is going to make them much more willing to listen to you and potentially commit to that opportunity other than just like the real surface level answers that
Mm.
you might get.
Love it. You're literally speaking my language. This is exactly what I used to do as a recruiter and what I do now in my job when I'm coaching recruiters. That for me, the two biggest, so I call them MITs and RFLs, most important things and reasons for leaving. They're the two most
Yeah,
important things when you are qualifying a candidate, right? And similar, so when you're doing a job
yeah,
qualification. But for salespeople, it would be money or compensation, so like commission,
yeah,
money, etc., and
yeah, of
progression.
course.
And
Yeah,
whenever I would have like a trainee or an RC underneath me or from another team that would submit a candidate, and then I get the little write up, we used to call it the MIT, so we had some bullet points. I'd always go over to them and I'd say, like, so Matt, why does Joe Blogs want progression? You said that their most
yeah,
important things are progression. Oh, well, he's a territory sales manager now, so he wants to progress his career. Okay, where does he see himself in 5 years? Uh, I didn't actually ask that. I can go back. Okay,
yeah,
so how
yeah,
do you know that progression is their most important thing? Because he said it. But
yeah,
why? I don't
yeah,
know. I'll go and give them a quick call and find that out. Okay, cool.
yeah,
So they're
yeah,
on 50K a year. They want
yeah,
55, right? Why do they want that increase? Oh, because it's
yeah,
natural. Everyone wants a bit of an increase. Do they?
yeah,
No,
yeah,
not everyone. Like
yeah.
I've got some
No, yeah,
candidates that are
exactly.
happy to take a salary cut. So like
Yeah,
why do they want more money? What will that allow them to do? So what you've just said there
yeah,
is literally speaking my language and then just getting to the deep core reasons why and understanding how that would make them feel. And just if,
yeah,
say, for example, money is the most important thing, I give this analogy all the time. What will that extra 5K a year mean for you? How would that
yeah,
make you feel? What would that allow you to
yeah,
do? What other things would you want to do? I used to do that with
yeah,
nurses, and they would go, "Well, I drive
yeah,
a shitty old Fiesta right now, and I
yeah,
want to, I want to
yeah,
get this Mercedes or
yeah,
something." So when you get them a job, you can sit there and say,
yeah.
"This particular role will allow you to
Yeah,
get that
yeah, exactly,
Mercedes." Do you know
exactly.
what I mean? It
Yeah,
just goes
it's
deeper.
all yeah. It makes your job at that like I know I said I don't necessarily like the word closing, but at that closing stage, if you've got all this information at the start, you should be like retraining all this information throughout the entire process, through every stage of the interview process. You're like, okay, great, like. So you told me you're looking for X, Y, and Z, so you can do this, this, and this. Like based on what you've discussed today, like do you feel like that's going to be possible with this
Mm,
position? Is there anything that you're concerned about? Any more information you need to know about whether it can do this, this, and this for you, etc. But as I said, like when it comes to the closing point, if all of that aligns with it, again, it's like you've got the emotional side, and it becomes so hard for that logical decision to not be yes, I want to take the position if it matches everything they've told you throughout the process that they want
mm,
and need. I think a big thing, a question that I love to ask, and again, it's from the training that I've been doing, but it's more like on the client side. So
mm-hmm,
once you've understood all the pain points, gone through everything, if you've given like a little pitch about solving their solutions or sorry, solving
mm,
their problems, and you've got the solutions to it, it's like, okay, do you feel like these solutions, do you feel like what I presented to you is going to solve these problems for you? If they say yes, you go, okay, why do you think it's going to solve those solutions? And I absolutely love that question because it's like you get them to literally sell back to you as to why
love
you
it.
are the right person to go with. So, okay, so why do you think it is the right solution though? And they
Mm,
go, well, because you're going to do this for me, it's going to do this for me, it's going to allow me to do this, this, and this. We're going to
mm,
solve the hiring issues we've got. So, okay, great. Well, like, let's get started then. It's
yeah.
a you don't have to do any selling at that point. They're selling it to themselves, and I think that's a big thing that the trainer like that I've been focusing on is like you through skilled questioning techniques, you get them to sell your services to them themselves basically like they're basically reiterating everything that you want them to get you want them to say, but you're not saying it
Mm,
for them. That's the biggest part. You don't say anything or assume anything for them. You're just asking them questions to get them to tell themselves that there is a need for change and they need to do it now, and then you just
mm,
present the solutions to them, and then again like at the end of the call ask them why they think these solutions are the ones that are going to solve their problems.
mm.
Then it becomes very difficult to walk away.
Yeah, mate, I absolutely love that. You're just completely speaking my language. I can't agree with you more. It's literally exactly how I got taught. Just ask good open questions and just keep digging into every single answer. And I know some people will say the why question sometimes can be a bit, you can get sort of mixed replies from people when you say
Yeah, for
why.
sure.
But if you simply just say, why is that? Just out of curiosity, that just
Yeah.
softens resistance.
Yeah.
Or if you give a bit of
It's
context
like,
behind
yeah.
it, it just softens the
Yeah,
resistance.
exactly. It's the tonality you ask it in, right? If you're like, oh, why is that? Like, why do you want to do this? Like, if you're aggressive with it, or you're like, feel like you're interrogating them a bit, like they're
Yeah,
gonna get their back up and perhaps not react. But and as you said, like just out of curiosity, like that is a line that I always use, and I use it every
mm,
day. It's like I'm just curious to learn, like why is that?
mm,
Just out of curiosity, why is that important to you?
mm.
Then it becomes very, like as you said, like more light-hearted. It's less invasive. They don't feel like
Yeah,
you're coming at them, interrogating them
yeah.
as to
Tone,
what
like you
they're.
said, tone is everything. Tone really is, because if you anything that we've discussed today, if you don't have the correct tone, you can fuck it up. But
Yeah,
equally as well, I go through, I don't know what, if this is an actual thing. I've just called it context related questioning, where I'll say, say for example, you've told me your biggest problem is the speed of delivery. And then we go into that and I've asked why that's the problem. And if I want to go one more time, I'll say,
yeah,
well, it's really interesting you said that, Matt. A client I'm currently working with is saying this, and their reason was because of, or the reason why was because of this. And yeah, why would it be for you? So that way they feel like I'm not alone. He's not pressing me too much.
yeah,
Other people are going through this, and then they can open up a little
yeah,
bit more, if that makes
yeah,
sense. But look, I'm conscious of time. We've been going for about an hour now, and
yeah.
as everyone knows, by the end of the show, I asked the same question. Following to this episode, how can people get 1% better in recruitment?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to like the big topic we discussed was just invested in yourself. I think recruitment historically has a terrible track record of investing in L&D generally, like just sales and training or recruitment
Yeah,
training generally. I think it's crazy to me, like coming from a sports background. Obviously, you train every day to like perform your best on the weekend, right? But in in recruitment, it's like here's a like even if, but like my first role, like 2 week crash course, like then go just throw you into the deep end, just go do it.
mm,
So yeah, I think if your company aren't investing in you, or like perhaps maybe just not in the position to, which is not necessarily their fault. But yeah, like if you're doing well, especially, I think like that's the best time to do it effectively. If you've got maybe you got a bit of extra money to look at investing in courses, in full like training development courses, like you don't have to spend thousands and thousands of pounds. It depends like what you want to do effectively.
mm,
But if there's, it goes back to what I said, like make sure you find someone that you connect with most though,
yeah,
because I think you could sit on a training course with someone that's teaching you a way that you don't feel comfortable with, or like maybe you just feel like personality wise you couldn't ever be that type of person and that type
mm,
of salesperson. So yeah, like do a bit of research first, like look at a few different people. They don't have to be recruitment trainers either. Like as I said, the guy I've been doing a lot of training with is he was like door to door sales for a lot of his
mm,
career. But I just resonated a lot with the way and style that he was trying to do it.
mm.
And yeah, like I've seen the seen the rewards of it, and there's plenty more to come for sure. So yeah, I'd just say never be scared to the best person, like the best thing you can invest in is yourself in any sense of life, like
Yeah.
whether it's personal, work life, but yeah, just never be scared to do it and never be scared to, as I said, try things outside of your comfort zone for sure.
Love it. What a beautiful way to end this. And
Yeah.
yeah, I can't agree more with pretty much everything that you've just said there. And I think for trainees where you're not necessarily earning a lot of money, it is difficult to invest money into yourself. But if your TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn feed is just
Yeah.
memes, and there's nothing wrong with that, but
Yeah.
you can make a separate TikTok account and it can
Yeah.
be for personal development. Like I only got Instagram the first time for to follow the Grant Cardones and the Millionaire
Yeah. Yeah.
Mentor and stuff, and
Yeah.
load of different coaches so that I could get
Yeah.
some motivation and some ideas and
Yeah.
see how people are doing things. And it really worked. And then once I started to earn some good money, then I out my own pocket paid thousands to go on different courses, and I'm
Yeah.
where I am today. It's all paid off.
Yeah. 100%, mate. Totally. I totally agree. There's enough free resources out there to 100% get better. And it doesn't like, I think a big thing is don't expect to get amazing overnight. Like it's all very incremental. There's a
Yeah.
lot of practice that needs to happen, and you need to you're going to have a lot of calls and probably not so great calls to get good at the things you're trying to improve on. But yeah, unless you want to just sit doing the same thing constantly every day, that's not potentially working. Like you just got to look at other things that can help.
Absolutely, mate. Cool. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really, really enjoyed the conversation we've had
Yeah,
today.
for sure.
In terms of people reaching out to you, I'm assuming it's your LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, for sure. LinkedIn is where I pretty much live, as you probably well know as a recruiter.
Amazing. Are you still doing your podcast as well?
I am. It's a little bit delayed production at the minute, but yeah, I do a design leadership podcast on LinkedIn for the US market. So I think I'm up to episodes. Well, I've released 5 episodes officially on YouTube, but where I'm at, like in terms of me actually posting them, I'm up to about episode 3. So episode
Mm,
4 is meant to be coming out soon, but it's
amazing.
finding the time to get it out. But yeah.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Well, look, once again, thank you very much. For people that have got this far, follow Matt on LinkedIn, follow his journey. And yeah, if you've got this far, like I said, we are on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Follow the podcast, like the podcast. If it's on YouTube, comment, like, subscribe. It helps with the algorithm and all that type of stuff. We've got the monthly newsletter. Whilst we're recording this, the 15th of the 11th, the monthly newsletter. Jesus, let me get my words out. Has hit over 1,000 subscribers. So big thanks to people that have subscribed to that. And we're over 100 followers on LinkedIn. Woo! Hopefully, I will look back at this one day and go, my God, we've come so far, but who knows? But yeah, thank you very much. And until next time, guys.